Hello, and I'm predicting that you're going to love our show today because we're going to be talking about a 3-day free virtual summit all about navigating the COVID-19 kind of, I don't want to say craziness, but kind of discombobulating atmosphere of distance learning. So if you haven't joined our show before, I am Charmaine Tanner. I'm a parent. I have an adult son with Down syndrome. I'm a retired teacher. I was a general ed teacher and a special ed teacher, and now I'm a full-time advocate. And I also host this weekly show every Thursday at noon Mountain Time. And today I'm excited because we have the host, Yael Cohen, that is going to be hosting the 3-day virtual summit. And Yael is an advocate from Colorado. And we knew each other when we were both working in Colorado, and we have still stayed in touch as I've moved to Idaho. So, Yael, welcome to our live show today.
Well, hi, I'm so happy to be here, even though it figures one more tech problem, and it's not letting me show the videos.
I know. So we will see if the tech gods will be kind to us maybe in a few minutes, if we all pump, love and virtual love for the tech gods to be with us, right? But Yael, so I'm excited. I wanted to show, let's see. Oops, Yael disappeared. Hopefully she'll be signing back on. Let me share with you. This is a link, and I'll put it in the comments where you can register for the free 3-day virtual summit that's going to be coming up next Wednesday. It will be Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And Yael has 14 different presentations that will be up on the airs for you to watch. She personally knows Pete Wright, the famous nationally known, probably internationally known, special education advocate for, attorney for parents. So Pete Wright, my guess is going to be the starting presentation on the virtual summit. So if you are here with us live, say Heidi hi. Hey, Yael, you're back.
I'm back. I know, I followed the instructions, but then of course it just threw me off.
Well, I was saying my guess is that Pete Wright will be your opening speaker for the virtual summit. Is that right?
Yes, he will. Although everyone's going to get several different ones on every day. So, but I'm going to suggest the order you listen to them anyway.
Oh, good. And so if you want to tell us a little bit about the virtual summit, what some of the topics are. I know Pete Wright, I know Dr. Ross Green is going to be on the summit. So there's some wonderful people. If you're with us live or watching the replay, let us know. Have you heard Pete Wright or Dr. Ross Green speak before? And maybe give us a comment about what you thought of them.
They are both so wonderful, and I think I maybe fixed it to get the videos, maybe.
Okay.
So we'll have to see, but I'm just so honored that both Pete and Ross agreed to come on. They're very busy and they're doing all this other stuff, and that they came on, I was just ecstatic. I was in a training with Dr. Ross Green about a year ago for about trauma and trauma-informed schools, and got to spend an entire day doing his trainings. And Pete Wright has been one of my heroes for years and years. It's just a tremendous hero for parents and for advocates alike, and for attorneys also. He's just coached so many different people, and that's been just wonderful. And then we have all these other amazing people, also not as well known, but who brings so much to this.
Well, and I was happy to see Alex, a self-advocate who talks about, eliminating restraint and seclusion. So do you want to give us some insights of what Alex talked about?
He actually, after all these years, he started advocating and testifying as a 7-year-old. He had already been restrained, secluded, and he's gone in front of all these legislative groups and in DC. And he basically, Virginia finally just put the final parts through. I mean, he's been working on this for almost 7 years or 10 years. To get this, to make this law there, that they're not going to be able to do that to kids. So it's wonderful. And now he's with a group of people who lead the country on this endeavor to get this to be federal.
Well, I know. And I think it makes such a huge difference when it's the self-advocate's voice, right? And so I really encourage parents of even young children to get into that habit of asking your child for their input and their feedback and making sure that their voice is always heard too. And then the other one that I'm really looking forward to, Yael, is your panel of advocates. And do you want to talk? That sounds like such a fun session that you did.
It was so much fun. It was so interesting. We spent about half an hour, an hour probably, figuring out everybody's tech, getting everybody on, and then deciding which questions that are the most frequent questions coming up these days in COVID that we wanted to talk about. And so, and then we started answering them, and that was fun. And if the clips work, I do have them on one of the clips. So, but people talked about, there were so many ideas that came out of the advocate session. And then at the end, everybody was like, wow, we have to do this more often. This was fascinating for the advocates themselves to hear everybody's different ideas on each of the things. And that actually will be broken into 2 recordings because it went over. We had so much to say. So it was so much fun. So let me see right now. I think before I kicked myself off that's what I have to do in order to get the tapes to share. So I'm going to try that and bring up the one, just a clip from each. First, Pete Wright, who is of course an attorney. He had taken did the first private placement case for a child who is dyslexic. He himself is dyslexic, wasn't reading till I guess he was in high school, college, that he started. And and eventually became a very well-known lawyer practicing in front of the Supreme Court. So it's kind of never give up. But let me see if I can.
Yeah, see if you can share your screen. I know a lot of people have might have attended one of Pete Wright's workshops, that he does around the country, and now is just kind of having everything on virtual, right? But his website, wrightslaw.com, is kind of the go-to place when parents and advocates and other attorneys have questions. It's, over the years, he has just built, I see you. I see your screen.
Pete also. Oh, there, I see the advocates in the corner there. Let me get them out of the way. And I had these all in order. Oh, they were in the other screen in order, of course. Okay, can you see this now?
Yes.
Germaine with Pete? Okay.
Yeah. So, oops, I'm sorry, dear.
Okay, am I still there with Pete?
Yes, you are still there, and I'll put the video full screen.
Okay.
And then if you want to start it. So this is, like I said, Yael is hosting a 3-day virtual summit that starts next Wednesday. What is it, October 14th?
Yep.
Yes. And goes through Friday the 16th. Pete Wright was one of her interviewees. And so let's show her video clip here.
Okay, so first we were talking in this segment about kids who are really, really complex. And then it's followed by, I'll skip a little bit, or we could talk about it in between. But then we'll go into what he's talking about of getting your stuff all in order, which is very important. So here we go. I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
I thought that was the other part of the house where you couldn't set your office
wait, that's not the right spot. I had it right there. Let's see, 20. Oops. And of course, that's not showing up where it's supposed to. Gee, why is that not all on there? It's like it's skipping there. 20 for a, there we go, maybe. 2052. Okay. I think I've got that. Yeah, we had a few tech issues going on too. That
to get her.
Oops. 20. I'm so glad I had this set just to the right spot.
I know. That's
been the videos we did back in September. Right around there we go.
There are some youngsters, I think, that can definitely benefit from remote online kind of learning. Any question about that? Whereas 6 months ago, we would have thought that's not possible.
Right.
And yet now that it's happening, you're hearing some great success stories. At the same time, though, there are some children. If we think back to Helen Keller, before Anne Sullivan came into her life. What would happen with her now if Anne Sullivan, let's take Helen Keller in today's time, before Anne Sullivan began working with her, how would Anne Sullivan be able to work with Helen Keller to get her to where Helen Keller is now? To me, I don't know how you could possibly, and I use the Helen Keller analogy so often when I'm talking about children with autism who are initially diagnosed and they are very severe cases. Children with really severe autism. So often you think back to Helen Keller because the technique, the approach, so often is the same with intense ABA, right. Someone who really knows what they're doing. And I just don't see that possibility. And then when you're dealing with a child with autism who has had it for a number of years and is a teenager now and is big and burly and is starting to show behavior problems because so often behavior is actually communication. They'll act out because they really can't verbally explain what it is they want or need, and others can't understand it. So you have some really bad acting out behavior, and how could you handle that, deal with that? And then the single parent in that scenario, raising that child. I mean, it's beyond me. What can be done?
Yeah, these are kids who are in school normally, and there's a teacher and there's several aides in the room, and if they're going to general ed and included, that they've also got people who are supporting them, and then all of a sudden it's like one parent
exactly.
who is trying to do this, and they're saying, oh, and teach your child.
Well, that mom may have to go to work.
Okay. So that was, let me just go on and then we can talk. Let me go to the other clip that we have from him.
Okay.
9:15.
I'm going to put up the banner where people can register for the summit, and I'll also post that in the comments. And Yael has her website, which is Get IEP Help. And if you also go to Get IEP Help on Facebook, you'll see her Facebook page there.
And we are set with the second part. And this was, well, I'll let Pete explain.
Okay.
So what should parents be doing now we don't know what is going to be happening 6 months from now. By and large, everyone is kind of in the dark, hoping for the best, preparing for the worst. And so what we've been saying on our website, Pam and I have done several different webinars and podcasts, and what we're saying is the same thing everybody else is saying. You need to know where your child is now. Where was your child on reading, writing, arithmetic, spelling, expressive language, perceptive language, on all these basic skills? Where was the kid before COVID kicked in? There is test data most likely out there with regard to the child. The initial eligibility testing was done, presumably what may have touched on that. Also, the standardized testing that school districts typically do every year, every other year. The odds are that there's test data. Where was the child before COVID kicked in? So we tell parents, get a complete copy of the entire file from all sources, not just from the school, but if the child was seen by a private evaluator, a private psychologist, or maybe even pediatrician, and maybe other places where there is some data that may be of value. Get the file neat together and organized. And in our promotions advocacy book, and also I have a YouTube video, talks about how to organize the file. It has to be in strict chronological order, not by content type, not by document type, not by IEP, not by evaluations, but strict chronological order. That helps tell a story. So,
okay, me.
And I love his method of organizing records. That chronological aspect, I think, like you said, it tells a story.
And I think too that, well, one is he talks a lot about the story, and that's his whole letter to a stranger that he's been teaching us for years, that you have no idea who's going to be reading your stuff, seeing your stuff. You have to assume the worst, that this could really go south. You could end up in a lawsuit and you might not be able to testify, or maybe you're not really great at testifying. So that would be an important thing too. But it's, it's kind of, I think, also how the attorneys want that file.
Right.
But it also, and again, there's lots of ways to do a file, but he's looking from his perspective, and when Pete says something, I tend to listen.
Well, and I think just the idea of looking at, emails that you've gotten since March, or, any kind of, correspondence, any kind of feedback that you gave the teachers about distance learning, samples of the work that your child's been doing, to have those things organized. So just go back to March and at least start tracking, those kinds of activities, and see where your child was in March and where he's now in the fall.
Right. It's really important. So the next clip that I have is with Diane Wilcuts, who's an advocate from Connecticut, and she put out a survey, actually through Wright's Law, and 3,200 parents responded to it. And she is explaining that, everybody was saying, oh, this is what parents are thinking, but nobody was asking the parents. So she started asking, and got also some, besides the survey, got something like 10,000 comments. She's going to be coming out with a new survey soon, and you're all going to want to participate in it, and make sure your information is there. But I have a little bit from her, and she's talking about some of the findings.
Yes, and I had her on my show, I don't know, probably a month or so ago, so some people might have seen her then. But yeah, it was so interesting to see the results, and she got a lot of wonderful comments and information. So let's put this full screen.
Okay.
There we go.
I'm doing well with the tech here. Okay. Here's Diane talking just a little bit about it.
out of the 3,200 plus parents, only 68% said that their children were receiving any special education services. And so that was a big issue, that special ed services weren't being provided. And many were saying that even if they were provided, they were getting far fewer services than what the child had in their IEP. So, for example, one child was supposed to be getting 5 hours a week of specialized reading instruction, and it was down to 15 minutes every other day.
Wow.
And so they were saying, yes, my child's getting special education services, but it's really not much. So, and that was of the, relatively small proportion of people who are getting anything. On the other hand, there were families here and there who were saying, everything was right on, that their child was getting, pretty much what was in the IEP. They were getting, if it was one-on-one, they were getting live synchronous instruction, real-time instruction, that was working really well. But the vast majority were saying that the services just weren't sufficient. They said that sometimes they didn't have the technology they needed. Maybe it was a family of 5 kids and they maybe were sharing a cell phone or, one computer. And, the data plan might be limited in terms of how much data they could use. And, or they just didn't have good, reliable internet access.
Okay, so yeah, Diane started, let me unshare that. Diane started going through all the pros, the cons, what parents were saying and what it was important to, and what it's important for now to be paying attention to. So.
Right, yeah, I think that, and like she had said that she's going to be redoing that. I think November or December, she was thinking of redoing the survey. So both Yael and I will make sure that we give you that link. Last time, if you were on Wright's Law's mailing list, you also got that information. So that could be something that you look at doing. And let me put up, this is the registration link again for the virtual summit. So it's just getIEPhelp.com/PL/216528. And you get 3 days of wonderful information and it's all free. So we like that, right?
Yep.
We like that.
That's the thing. Okay, so our next clip is from the advocates, and I went ahead with the first question because every advocate, I think, in America was hearing stuff about the masks and what to do. And some of the kids who have gone back to school now, at least for now, we don't know what will be, and some of them are coming out already with quarantines and whatever, so in and out of remote, which is what kind of we expect all year long. But so we were talking about the masks and about kids with sensory issues. And again, we have this wonderful group of advocates who I've known a lot of these for a number of years. One person who was new to me, but we just it was so interesting comparing ideas and just building on each other's ideas. So let me go ahead and share. I'm not sharing that yet, correct?
Not yet.
Okay, so let me share that.
And that can be an accommodation you look at for distance learning is, mask breaks. So like 1 minute every hour, right? So we'll put this on solo.
Okay. All right, are you ready?
We're ready.
Okay.
Susan, all I could think of when you said that,
wait a
Candace,
minute.
was maybe not use peanut butter.
Oops, I lost where I was. Hold on 1 second. We were at 204. Okay. I thought I left this right on there. I have learned so much about tech
I know.
Conference. Oh my goodness. What I haven't learned in the bloopers that have happened have been hilarious, some of them. So, okay, let's go.
Be watching both. So here's the first question. My child with severe sensory issues can't wear a mask for more than half an hour. He cannot stay home, and the school says he cannot be in school without it. Sandy, would you like to start?
Sure. I have a little bit of experience with this through some friends and colleagues who have children and young adults on the autism spectrum and have pretty significant sensory issues. And some of them, when they first started, they could do 10 seconds, maybe 5 seconds, and then the mask was off. And so they just set about incorporating mask wearing into the routines of the day and heavily reinforcing leaving the mask on for increasing periods of time, just like you would with any other positive behavior that you're trying to cultivate and expand on. And so you start with what the student is able to do, and you set incremental, reasonable targets, and you positively reinforce all over the place. If the child is able to participate in choosing among several masks so that they have some agency over what does or doesn't suit comfort or wise, if you can allow the student to put it on themselves so that they feel in control, that it's not being done to them, but they're participating and having some choice in the matter. And when they protest, give them the appropriate protest that you want them to use, and reinforce them by allowing them to remove it when they use the appropriate protest. Because again, we want to reinforce everything we do with students, especially when health and safety.
That's great. Laura, what did you want to add?
And I would just add, very similar, the idea that you want to set up a routine and you want to consult with your experts on this, talk to your occupational therapists. They're very important in that, along with maybe behavior supports, and creating a plan that can be put into the IEP or can be as an accommodation in a 504 for those who may not have an IEP. Another thing that we're noticing that also helps with the sensory exposure and building in maybe some masks that are safe, break over, keep it on for a little bit longer, and then you have your mask break over here. Another really great thing we're noticing are social stories. There's a lot of free social stories about wearing masks online now that are really helpful to kids to understand a little bit more of the reasoning behind it, and that can play into helping with the sensory.
That's great.
I was going to say that another option that we use for some of our kids is that we put something nice smelling in the mask, something that they are really appreciative of and that's familiar to them. And it helps us stay on longer, and it helps the sensory aspect of having to wear a mask. Right.
And chocolate, I was thinking.
Chocolate.
Not for me, but yeah,
give them chocolate.
Yeah, I remember being at a conference and session with the Geneva Center in Canada years ago, and they were talking about kids who have really some maladaptive things that they do, and looking for what the sensory piece is that they were looking for in that. So they might be wanting to smell something that's awful or acting out in some way, but if you could figure out what else would work into that sensory scheme, that sometimes you could put something very acceptable in. It could be an odor, it could be something they're touching, but something else that would substitute for something that we really don't want around. So,
well, and I've heard of some parents using like an old T-shirt of theirs and, making it several layers, but using that as a mask so their child has that familiar, their mom is still with them or just different kinds of masks, right? Some are cloth that just fit over. I mean, there's so many varieties. So yeah, helping your child make choices about what they want to try.
Yeah, that there are a lot of options out there now. In fact, somebody was just talking to me about her child who's eating the mask part of the time from the inside. And we were talking about even trying a spacer, which you know, have these things that just fit over that apparently are not real uncomfortable, but it keeps the mask away from your face. So it's not getting chewed on all the time also. So there's lots of varieties out there. But again, that was just one of the questions that there were 8 of them, I think, that we chose to answer. And we had another huge list full of them that a lot of them. So, okay, so I'm going to have 2 more clips. One of them is with Dr. Ross Green, and I'm going to show that one first while he's talking specifically, responding to a question about executive functioning and about behaviors. And this isn't the part where he says it. I think we talked about it earlier. Dr. Ross Green is really known for saying kids do well when they can, and looking at behaviors totally differently than most schools do, and looking at unmet needs and lagging skills and bringing the kid into the collaboration. And when I've seen schools do this, it is just amazing what can happen. So let me put him on at this point. Yes, he's answering a question about executive functioning. So
and Randy's here saying that she loves all the suggestions. So hey to Randy, another Colorado advocate. Okay, we got your screen.
Do you have it up?
Yep.
Okay, let's see if this one hopefully is starting, yes, right at the right spot.
This one mom of a 9th grader put it, I had no idea how bad she is. She has no executive functioning skills. She can't even get herself on Zoom. I'm trying to teach suddenly a kindergartner who's in high school. And the parents are asking, was the school supposed to teach our kids this, or do I need to do that now? And how would I go about doing that?
Believe it or not, the answer is kind of the same. What you just described is a high schooler who is having difficulty meeting a particular expectation, or actually it sounds like many of them, but the one specific one that you mentioned is getting on Zoom. That's an unsolved problem. And that's an unsolved problem that is going to be a high priority. It's a problem that needs to be solved. And all that high schooler is proving to us is that problem isn't solved yet. Now, as for the tantruming and the screaming and the crying, all those are behaviors. Those are signals that tell us that kids are having difficulty meeting certain expectations. So once again, let's not get all caught up in the signal, the behavior. That's just the fever. Let's go deeper and figure out what expectations the child is having difficulty meeting. And once again, you just named a very specific one. That's a problem that needs to be solved collaboratively and proactively. So the bottom line is, it really doesn't matter whether the school should have taught that skill or not. It doesn't really matter at this point whether that problem should have been solved a long time ago. Maybe it should have. At the moment, it's still a hot one. It's clear that it's an unsolved problem. Still, we have a choice. We have to solve that problem. If we try to solve it unilaterally, which is where adults would be talking about the solution is, and imposing on a kid, we greatly increase the likelihood of tears and tantrums and crying. If we solve that problem collaboratively, with the kid as our full partner, number one, figuring out what's making it hard to meet better. Number two, finding solutions for both parties. And if we do that proactively, because it's highly predictable, instead of in the heat of the moment, I predict that we will be able to solve that problem. Once again, if all we're focused on is the behavior, the ways in which the kid is having difficulty meeting expectation, I predict that that problem will remain unsolved.
And let me come off him. So yeah, he just talked about a whole bunch of things, different things, and behavior is a huge problem. across the country, and the way people look at it as just bad kids is even a huger problem. And he is just totally breath of fresh air. We will have all his resources to go along with these. He has them all up for free. Parents can watch them, educators can watch them, psychologists can watch them, whoever, and they're all free. The system is free. The paperwork is free. There are videos teaching for free. It's kind of like, oh my goodness, why wouldn't anybody do this except the people, I think, and often in schools get stuck in what happened to us when we were children.
Right. I just, you know, and I've been lucky that Ross Green has been a guest on my show, and I just love to keep hearing from him and going back to his, you know, website and such for, like you said, all those free resources. And, you know, I think it would make such a huge difference in our schools to implement his, you know, his ways of looking at behavior and going underneath and trying to find out what those lagging skills are and what we can do. It would make an incredible difference on reducing restraint and seclusion if people employed his, you know, practices. So I'm so glad that he was part of your virtual summit.
Yep, me too. Me too. Okay, so, and the last clip I have is of a new executive special education director from Colorado, and of one of our, I guess it's our second largest district in Colorado. So there's about 80,000 kids, and I don't even know how many kids who are in special ed. He just became the executive director. He's been in the district for just a year, but has done other stuff before that. And well, two things. One is, as I found in my own district that I live in, if you wait long enough, sometimes, wow, the people turn over, and the people who aren't so good as directors, they turn over. And so in my school district, I waited 25 years to get a really good, solid special education director, and who we could really work with, and who made such changes in the district. And then he was followed by somebody else. And with Matt, I don't even know how many years I've been waiting for Jeffco. It's maybe more than 25, to have somebody who really cared not just about kids, but about families and about partnering, and about changing things. And what I think, and you said Randy's on, we were both in an advocates meeting that he called for, a bunch of the advocates who work in the district. And he was going to give us lunch, but I kind of canned that and said, nah, you have to do this virtually. But he said, you know, he admitted it's not just COVID. We have a lot of problems that we have to solve. We're probably not going to be able to do them all by tomorrow, but we are going to really chip away with them. And we really want to work with you, because he realized that the advocates really know what all these problems were. So he has a lot of really great ideas. He's been putting them into force already. The district is looking different in a number of different ways, besides that it's COVID. But I brought him on for two reasons. Basically, one is talking about transition from 18 to 21, 22, depending on your state, and that of talking about what happened when COVID hit. And he had all of these kids trying to reload. I hope we are on. Okay, okay, and I am hoping we're on. I'm going to keep talking just in case. Charmaine is here and just hiding somewhere, but that was the text I got. Or I'm sure I'll get another one saying to reload this also. But anyway, so one was that Matt was trying to figure out when COVID hit, what do we do with all these kids who are post high school? What do we do with them? And they can't be out in the community. They can't be doing their job shadowing. What are we going to do? And that was very, I think, innovative what they were doing, and that they had a good solution, and it was working out really well for a number of families. And then the other thing that they did this really cool thing over the summer. They decided to do a pilot and see, and I'm just checking. Actually, I hope I'm on. Well, I may be on with the Charmaine just lost internet. And hopefully I'm still on. But I really won't know that until I get off. So, and hopefully, oh, you're back. Oh, good.
You're back.
I don't know, Charmaine. I think I may have been talking all along. I was kind of just filling time there, but I think we can get ahead because I didn't lose internet.
Do you want to share your screen with Matt's clip?
I'm going to do that now. I hadn't done that yet. I was hoping you were getting back on. Anyway, I was just mentioning that one of the really innovative things they did in that district that I've not heard that other districts did was during the summer, they got two of their most gifted teachers of their most complex kids, brought them all back in, and they troubleshooted for a week to figure out what was going to work, what wasn't going to work, things from which mask, which plexiglass, to how to put tape on the floor, to how to keep kids separate. But within the class, it was just some of the stuff that they found out was just amazing. And then they spread it to the entire district. So the clip I picked now, though, is Matt talking about what's really important going forward from what they learned over the summer, and what I think he really believes anyway that you need to do. So I'm going to put that on right now. I have two clips right now. So one of that, and then what people should do if it's not working this way in your district. And as I said, I spent a long time waiting for somebody. If you wait long enough, the people turn over, and you can get really wonderful people in a district that was really frustrating before. Okay. Oops, wait a minute. Oops, I forgot to share my screen.
Here we
are. There we go. And can you see us?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Their families, but in this time more so than ever, and without that collaboration and partnership, remote learning can be a bigger challenge than it needs to be.
Oh, I think I missed the very beginning there, so hold on.
Okay. Forward, and what did you learn that bombs and not to do it again?
Yeah, well, what we learned and what we've already known is that we have to partner with our families, but in this time more so than ever, and without that collaboration and partnership, remote learning can be a bigger challenge than it needs to be. And so communication is key, and collaboration is necessary for a successful school year. And so one thing that we'll be taking with us this year is just elevating to our educators and making sure that they're having continuous contact with their families and supporting their families and whatever their needs might be to make remote learning a success in the event that we have to continue with remote.
Okay, that's one, and I want to go to the other. Oops, 13. Oh. And almost there. 1403, perfect, okay.
Okay, and the part about communication and collaborating with families, that's now not just for transition in your department, correct?
That's correct, yes. So across the board, just in general from remote, we have a high expectation and understanding of how important that collaboration and communication is now. And so even working with our business partners, if it's transition related, or even for school age students, just making sure that we're supporting our families. And one way we've been able to do that is even by providing some trainings for our families, or even setting aside or having our educators set aside office hours for families just to touch base with their teacher on how to problem solve things that maybe have come up that they weren't able to anticipate through this experience. I have some wonderful teachers who have big hearts, and we had many of our teachers do home visits with the appropriate PPE, of course, to provide activities so that students could continue to engage in some learning, because we really set the standard that our kids have to continue learning, and that included even our students with the most complex needs and who may be the hardest to reach in a remote setting. So it was mailing home activities and things that parents could do with their students, dropping those materials off, or even setting up, we did a community support line. It was later on at the beginning of this year, actually, to help problem solve. But again, keeping that strong line of communication was key last spring for supporting those learners in particular.
And that really is, I mean, that's something that families find across the country. What would you say to families that don't have that in their districts, that they're feeling kind of cut off for a variety of reasons?
You know, I think that this whole, one thing I would say is that last spring is something that we couldn't have anticipated. And it was our first time having done remote learning, or I should say it was the first time for many to take on remote learning and to participate in remote learning. And we've come a long way since last March. I think a lot of districts have figured out, you know, what worked and what didn't work and what they need to do moving forward. And if you're finding that the communication or collaboration isn't where it needs to be, then I would encourage you to reach out to your teachers or your school leadership, or even your district leadership to advocate for what you need support with.
And stop sharing. So what was so refreshing, of course, is to hear, hey, we really want to partner with you. We really need to be talking with you.
Well, I'm so glad that you were able to share some of those clips. I just put the link, and I'll post it up here again, for people to register for the 3-day virtual summit. Do you want to give them any other details before we sign off?
Well, as I said, there's also a Facebook group. When you get your thank you email, after you confirm, that's the most important. When you opt in, you got the thank you page right there on the screen, and you'll get a thank you email. And you definitely want to go and find that email wherever it's hiding, spam, trash, promotions, wherever it is. And you want to whitelist that, like move it so that you'll get the information from the summit. And there's a Facebook group written on there so that you can come and join us for discussions, and where we have some other people who I would have loved to have zillions of people on this, but we could only have so many. And but I have people who are popping out of the woodwork saying, hey, could I do something too? And we're basically going to do sessions, live Facebook sessions, right into the Facebook group. A lot of those will be question answer kind of thing with other experts. There's a lawyer so far who agreed to do this. There's a neuropsych who asked me last night and said, oh, can I come and answer questions and stuff like that. So there's a lot of excitement on it. It's just really amazing. Besides Ross and Pete, I was so excited to have president of Parent to Parent National and Family Voices, the vice president nationally, that they both, their session, I didn't bring that clip up right now, although I'll probably be sharing that on my Facebook page, Get IEP Help during the week. Charmaine also talks about tips for online learning. So that's another great session, and about her toolbox, which I don't know if that's out yet. But that's really exciting. Also, there are just so many wonderful people on talk. So anyway, it's going to be for 3 days. Every morning you'll get the link for the days. There'll be 4 or 5 different sessions. Some of those are split even, so that you can watch those and then come to the Facebook group if you'd like in the evening. And but they go until like the next morning. So it's very exciting.
Oh, I bet. So people will be able to see them. They'll be up for what, 24 hours or so?
Right. Each group, each day.
And if you want to buy a pass to have, you know, further access, what can they do there?
So that you'll get information on the thank you page. I kept that really low cost. Actually, this has been quite the endeavor, more than I expected it was going to be. I said, that'd be pretty easy, and I have some software I could do this on. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. However, that what I really, really wanted to cover, the one thing I wanted to cover was the captioning and everything. These weren't right now, although I think Facebook, you can do that with that, should hopefully show up with captioning. But it is, everything will be captioned on it. So, and I just wanted to cover the expenses. So I did do a pass where you can have this for the next 5 years. And some of these things are not just for COVID. Some of these things are timeless. They're very important in times of COVID-19 and how we're all dealing with these. And on the other hand, some of them, Pete Wright, Ross Green, some of the other people talking about some of the other issues about independent evaluations. I'm doing one on how you deal with these online IEP meetings and the stuff that I've learned for that there's just so much that and I'm so excited, and I hope you'll all come and join us, both for the summit and for the Facebook group.
Well, it sounds exciting. And yeah, it's funny, timing wise, we're going to be both, you know, showing some extra support that we can give to families. Next Thursday on my regular Art of Advocacy show, we'll be introducing, finally, we'll do a drum roll, my distance learning advocacy toolkit for parents. And I'll be sharing some people will be lucky winners of lots of different surprises we have next Thursday. So tune in for our Art of Advocacy show next week. We are always live at noon Mountain Time. So Yael, thank you so much for taking time. I know you're busy with lots of different details for the virtual summit happening next Wednesday. And we appreciate you coming on and sharing all those cute, wonderful clips of new things that we'll be learning. So thank you, Yael, and we shall see you next week at the virtual summit.
And thank you so much. All right.
Have a wonderful day, and we will all be back